As the second part of the negative side of the policy, I will be talking today about workability and disadvantage for the burden of proof against banning fracking in environmentally endangered areas. Under disadvantage, I will be talking about how fracking actually raises employment in the areas that it is employed in, and using examples including North Dakota, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, how it increases population within the states that it is seen in, and how this also includes job growth within those states, which is why the banning leads to worse side effects. And lastly, under disadvantage, I will talk about that it is the wrong time to pull out, and that at this moment, fracking is increasing in technology and yield. Under the workability, I will be talking about circumvention by people and by the population, how this will hinder the advantages policy. And under this, it's because people are under-knowledgeable about fracking and because they have split opinions about fracking itself, which will cause hindrance later on when they decide however to implement this policy that they have put forth. Second, under workability, I'll talk about different alternate causality, and that fracking is not the direct cause of earthquakes, but rather a byproduct thereof. And that we shouldn't ban, but rather regulate fracking because it is supported by popular opinion, and then the restrictions serve the same purpose as banning. First off, under workability, circumvention by people. People really don't know a lot about fracking. It's not a very popular subject. Sometimes the news and the media covers it. But in an article called Support for Fracking in the United States in the journal Review of Policy Research, it says nearly 2,400 adult Americans over 16 were interviewed, and the data were subsequently weighted using U.S. Census Bureau figures to better reflect the actual U.S. population. This is showing that what the poll that they took was balanced and done correctly, and what they found was that people are equally divided in terms of preferring more regulation, 45%, versus maintaining existing levels of regulatory activities, 43%. So on the two sides of fracking, whereas if they want to be regulated more or regulated less, there was almost equivalent amounts of people in their studies. And this is important because this takes a much smaller stance than the advantages policy. The policy that they propose is they want to ban fracking. Yet, if an equal amount of people want to regulate or keep regulation the same, if you increase that to banning, less people are going to want to ban because everyone who wants to keep it regulated as it is now will not support banning, but the people who want more regulation may not support banning themselves. So the advantage has yet to put forth an exact way that they're going to make this policy come to fruition. So I put forth that if they put it on the state or the federal level, we will not see this policy occur because no one will vote for the banning, and really what we should be going for is regulation of fracking instead. As I said before, there is a lack of information. A 2010 national survey conducted by Infogroup or the Opinion Research Corporation indicated that 45% of Americans were at least somewhat aware of fracking controversies. That's somewhat aware. That's not, I know a lot about fracking. That's not, I'm up here talking about fracking. No, this is 45% of people everywhere, across states, even including in states that have fracking right now, they know somewhat about it. So if we don't have Americans that know enough about it to make informed decisions at the voting polls, I believe that we should actually be transferring our energy, our time, our money, instead to educating people so that way they can make informed decisions. There's also the case of my second point, different causation. Really, earthquakes, as they stated, they put forth that earthquakes are caused directly by fracking. But instead, I assert that fracking is actually caused by byproducts. In Mark Zobak, in Managing the Seismic Risk Posed by Wastewater Disposal, that was the article he wrote, he says, nevertheless, a number of earthquakes appear to be associated with the disposal of wastewater, at least in part related to natural gas production. So what he's saying here is that it's not actually the fracking itself that causes the earthquakes. What happens is, in the fracking, wastewater comes out of the wells after they're used. And Mark Zobak, who is actually a part of the Stanford Energy Club, he says that this wastewater is the direct problem, or not necessarily the direct, but a greater causation than just the fracking. And what this means is instead of banning, what we should be doing is we should be trying to curb the after effects. or the byproducts. Because by doing this, we can effectively hinder the earthquakes without having to actually ban fracking outright. And that's important because fracking has many advantages. In North Dakota, Brett A. Weber says, with the rush of economic refugees from the rest of the country into counties that have decades of depopulation, the single most pressing issue of the oil boom in relation to social services is that of housing, which extends to and aggravates many associated challenges. What this is saying is North Dakota was recently very unpopulated, but with the recent oil boom that fracking offered, new populations came in, and with it came job growth. But with the policy that they proposed, we would have a lot of people coming in from outside areas who don't have jobs, who don't have the ability to work, who don't have homes. You know what that creates? Those are refugees. In North Dakota, they're seeing this, that there's a huge problem of housing, especially without fracking. In New York, there's actually more support for fracking because it raises the average income. Fred Seigel in The Poverty of Environmentalism says, the New York State Business Council noted that in 2002, average personal income throughout Appalachia, which was an area that fracking had recently been incorporated into, was $25,470. That's just a number out in the blue, right? But that's $1,390 higher than the average in upstate New York counties. That's really important. We see a poor place get turned into something that's even better than upstate New York. That shows that if they take away their policy, wants to get rid of the fracking in these areas, we're going to see massive economic downturns. This is supported further because right now we have immense technological advances going on in fracking, and we see that because the reserves of fracking are constantly going up. Even though we're using more natural gas than we ever have before, the ratio of fracking usage to natural gas that is being exported out of the wells is increasing. So that's the reason why their workability and the disadvantages show that this policy is uninformed and should not be followed through with.